In today's episode, we answer a profound question. Can you really have it all
In your partner.
in your partner?
Yes. All right.
Keep watching. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Same Page. I am Lenard, and this is my wife.
Sarah Semajist.
In this episode, we're going to talk about, can you really get everything from your partner? So basically, can you really have it all?
Okay. Okay. So elaborate on that. So that could mean so many things.
Yeah, so basically it's like, can you expect that your partner satisfy all your needs, all your desires, all your expectations?
Right.
Is that even possible?
Right. I guess for one, it's gonna depend on your expectations.
Mm-hmm.
But you're right. For two, well, I'm gonna straight up say no.
Okay.
Right. I think at least for the most part, if I could speak for myself, we have this. At least I have this idea that my partner Lenard would satisfy a lot of things, and those things are probably based on what I've seen growing up.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Whether it's those are just examples, but being helping out in the kitchen, being a handyman, taking care of the budget, things like that. You may expect your partner to be a certain way and kind of like these check boxes,
Mm-hmm.
and based on what you feel like a man should do.
Yeah.
Or for you, based on what a woman should do.
Mm-hmm.
And because we are typically taking the examples of what we've seen growing up,
Exactly.
it's typically not who our partner is, right?
Mm-hmm.
Would
Yeah.
you agree?
I agree. Like you, I don't believe that you can have it all, or should you expect to have everything from your partner?
Right.
Just because, for one, we're diverse people, and for two, what is important for me may not necessarily be important for you.
Mm-hmm.
And wherever the things I tend to focus on, those are things I kind of obviously put most of my energy in. And if those are not in line with what your expectations or the things that you want, then there's that disconnect.
Right.
Right.
Exactly.
And I know for me, when I was dating, yes, when you're younger, maybe you're a little mature, so you kind of have a checklist, and then you're like, okay, well, like does she do this or does she do that? You know, I mean, as far as like at least for me, it was like, okay, what did she go to school? Did she finish did she finish her education? Because in my household, that was always like the first question. Like
Okay.
like if I brought a girl home, at least my father was like, okay, well, where did she go to school? Like, what is her profession? Like, that was always like the first question, right? So then after that, for me, what was important is that I wanted someone, who enjoyed cooking, not someone that had to do all the cooking, but just enjoyed it, because I enjoy cooking myself. So something that we can do together, and then we can kind of share that chore, right? And then I wanted someone who was active. Preferably someone who played at a certain level when it came to athletics, because I played at a certain level, and for me, physical fitness and being active is on a daily basis is an important part of my life. So the couple of things, obviously like I can go on and on about like the whole checklist, but there's definitely certain things that you look for, but then there's other things where your partner may fall short, and I believe that's okay. And I think having those expectations that your partner will satisfy all your needs or all your wants or all your desires, I think it's kind of like it's almost like you're living a fairy tale.
Right.
Right.
I agree, and I think not only talking about the checklist, but as you progress in your relationship or in your marriage,
Mm-hmm.
there's certain things that you also want, you know. So for
Mm-hmm.
example, I never pictured Leonard and I starting a business together. So what if I had this idea of starting a business and Leonard was kind of like, that's not for me, but then I expected him to be part of it. I can't really expect him to um to accompany me in my business if he didn't want to, right? It
Mm-hmm.
just, happens that we're both interested in real estate, but if he wasn't, then I couldn't fault him for it.
Yeah.
Also, for a man, sometimes we want the man to be a handyman
Mm-hmm.
in the household, be able to fix these things. I know that for me, I would love for Leonard to like be fixing things around the house,
Mm-hmm.
but Leonard doesn't really like these type of things. He doesn't like repairs in the house, and that's fine, and we can just hire these things out, as opposed to me staying there and expecting him to be able to do these things. I just have to accept that that's not his personality.
Mm-hmm.
Just like you said, what if there were certain things that were very important to you that I didn't do. Let's say I didn't like to cook.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say I didn't clean, right?
Yeah.
How would you respond to that, and would that be a deal breaker?
Well, the cooking thing for me would be a deal breaker. Like that's something that, like I mentioned before, something that I enjoy doing. It's something that obviously that we can do together. We can obviously share that task because you have to eat, and you have to eat every day, right? And it's not like it's healthy to eat out every day. Obviously, that gets expensive too. But then, if you're raising a family, you definitely want someone to be able to cook some healthy, nourishing meal for you and your family and your kids, right? So it's like, so those are all things, and also, we both grew up in a household where, like my mom did most of the cooking. My dad mostly just prepared the food, but my mom did most of the cooking. So not that I had that expectation, but I'm like, okay, like I understand that in this day and age, both the man and the woman are working. So there's like a dual income coming into the house. So obviously there's less time for people to allocate to chores around the house. So a lot of the times those have to be divvied up accordingly. And so as much as I would prefer maybe to have a wife that does all the cooking, I also understand that, a lot of times I'd have to step up and help out as well, right? But as far as, to answer your question, as far as it being a deal breaker, I know for me, if I met someone and she did not know how to cook whatsoever, I'm sorry.
But she can learn.
She can learn, but okay, that's a very good point. But like, I guess for me, if someone came, I was presenting someone who didn't know, who didn't like to cook, but then also didn't have the inclination to want to learn. Then for me, I guess adding that last point, her not wanting to learn, that would be a deal breaker.
Okay.
Yeah.
So do you think that if there are things in your relationship that you feel are lacking in your partner, or not necessarily lacking, but that you would like your partner to be or fulfill that role, do you think it's okay to ask your partner to if I could say develop that skill, or to, would you mind, like, let's say I wanted you to start fixing things around the house. Do you think it's okay for me to say, well, do you mind learning how to do these things? Or should you just be like, well, that's just not him. Let's just kind of like move on and hire these things out.
Yeah.
Like, do you think it's okay to ask your partner, or not demand, because I don't think it's ever okay to demand anything from from anybody,
Anyone,
really.
yeah, absolutely.
But do you think it's okay for your partner to be like, well, that's really what I expected? Are you able to acquire these skills or change? Because I think sometimes it has to be with a personality trait, right?
Absolutely. And like, so there's two things you hit on. So it's like, I don't think it's wrong for you to ask the person. It's a desire, it's a wish that you have. But then you have to lower your expectations, in a sense that if this
sounds like it's like, well, let me settle.
No, it's not about settling, but it's about like, at the end of the day, this person who so you want something from someone, that person doesn't have that natural inclination to want to do it, and we all know that unless that person develops that inclination to do something, then I mean, most likely this thing will never be something like never be a priority for that person,
Right.
or never be something that this person wants to do. So I think by you wanting or asking that person to do something that you would like, I think you have to kind of prepare yourself initially to kind of like, okay, like you can hope for the best, but then have those lower expectations to be like, okay, well, and plus I think if you actually know someone, you can already kind of like pre-assess the situation to be like, okay, like if I ask this of Leonard, he doesn't really like it to begin with, like, will he actually follow through? Will he actually want to do something like this?
Yeah, I mean, just like you said, you could always ask. I think it's up to the person to be very truthful in their response. You could say, I'll try, but I would rather you say no, that I can't, versus like, I'm going to do it, and then don't actually end up doing it, right? Or make the effort to do it. That's where, for me, then my expectation is higher, right? I'm like, oh, well, he's gonna try and do this. And then when the person doesn't even try, then that's when you get frustrated. So it is important for, if you are asked, if Leonard came to me and said, Sarah, I would love for you to do more cleaning, for example. And I understand that this is a chore that needs to be done in the house, and I'm not somebody that's inclined to clean. It's very important to be very truthful and say either I'm going to try, or like, man, you know what, like, let's just hire out someone. This is too much for me. It brings me anxiety to clean or to cook or whatnot. And I'm not even going to try. And I think it's okay, because in a certain to a certain extent, like, you met the person that way.
Exactly.
So to go into marriage expecting that person to change is not realistic.
Yeah.
I think you can definitely ask, but expect that it is very hard to change, right? Especially if you're asking of the person and the person is not doing them for themselves.
Yes.
It's really already hard to change yourself. So to ask for somebody for themselves to change, that's a tall order.
Absolutely. I know for me, like, going into a relationship, I would not necessarily focus on the positive things, because, like, for the most part, the positive traits tend to be there. They tend to flourish. They tend to grow. So I tend to just keep an eye on the negative traits. So things that, okay, well, maybe she doesn't want to do this, or she doesn't do that. Then you want to have that evaluation where it's like, okay, is this something that you can live with? Right. And as long as you're at peace with that, then you can, then by all means, you should go ahead and move forward in a relationship. But having those expectations of your partner doing everything, I think that's you get that in fairy tales and in children's books.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes. Yeah. If you have that expectation that your partner will, like you say, fulfill all these roles, whether it's like being sexy and cook and clean and be a handyman and be a good financial advisor, financial partner, and be a good business partner, at some point, not everybody's, I don't think one person actually fulfills all these roles.
Exactly.
Right? And I think it's totally okay. Just like Leonard said, just assess what are the things that you can live without, right? And if you can live without those, and you're okay with what the person brings, I think it's okay to move forward with it in the relationship. One thing that I do want to mention is that as you progress in a marriage or in a relationship, you do discover more things that you thought that either never came up, right? Because the situation never allowed for it to transpire. And you learn new things about your partner, whether it's like their shortfalls. Like, there was never an instant in a dating life where I was just like, can you fix this for me, right?
Okay,
it's only like when we're married, like, we have a house, things break down, and that's when you find out different things about your partner. And that's okay, right? It's not like you can predict who that person's going to be along the way. First of all, they're going to change, and and that's a good thing because you don't want people to stay the same.
Yeah.
At least change for the better, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, do know that you will discover things about your partner that you may or may not like, and then you have to, not necessarily reassess your relationship because once you're married, you just have to. I feel like you have to make it work if it's not in a situation that's abusive or anything like that. But you definitely have to find some patience, to work these things out when you find out things that you may not have, not necessarily like.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and like it's all about having that wisdom, and Sarah alluded to it very well. Is that you go through this, you date someone, you think you know them enough to want to marry them,
right?
But then once you're married, people grow, people evolve, people change, and it's okay to change. And especially when it's for the better, as long as you're not in a toxic or abusive environment, and you're seeing those changes in your partner, you want to change with them as well, or grow with them as well, so you guys are progressing in that same upward direction. And as long as at least for me, what kind of keeps me grounded is that as long as those fundamental things that I was attracted to, and the reasons why, basically I chose Sarah as a life partner, as long as that core is still there, as we're growing, as we're changing, then for me, there's no reason to want to leave the relationship because that core is still there, and you can still nurture that and grow on top of that.
Right. Like if it's like, okay, well, she, I'm not going to give that example. I don't think either way. I don't think it's necessary either. Okay. I think you said it very well.
Yeah.
So let us know. Are you finding everything in your partner? Are there certain things that are lacking that you feel like it's okay to live without, or do you think it's okay to push your partner forward to achieve these things that you are lacking? I think the answer is obvious, but that doesn't necessarily mean that, everybody thinks the same way.
Exactly.
All right. Well, thank you for watching. And as always, don't forget to live your truth.